Okay, last week we started Daniel, and, what do you remember from last week?
I remember
He was
coffee.
taken to Babylon.
I'm sorry.
He was taken to Babylon.
Taken to Babylon as a captive. Why was he taken to Babylon?
Because he was one of the young men that was selected to be in Nebuchadnezzar's service, to be
Okay.
trained and
Okay, it shows one of the young men that was selected, but why did God allow the Babylonians to do that? The king the king of Israel had angered God. He had been disobedient, and he had tried God past his patience, and God said, already? And he carried him on. Okay. That brings us down to 8. And also there was a passage in there where Daniel and his 3 friends had their names changed. Why was that the case?
to take away their identity and give them a new identity.
And it was kind of a way of showing ownership. And we find that all through the Bible, even with God, because he changed Abraham's name, he changed Sarah's name. And there's Saul, Peter's, and so it was a common thing back then. Okay, somebody read 8 through 10.
But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine, and he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. Now God had caused the official to show favor and compassion to Daniel, but the official told Daniel, I am afraid of my lord, the king, who has assigned your food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other young men your age? The king would then have my head because of you.
Okay. How do we see God's sovereignty here? Remember, the book of Daniel, it has prophecy in it, but it's really about God's sovereignty. So how do we see God's sovereignty?
Well, I think on this, because I was doing another study and I was reading it, and it's not about, because people use that verse for, oh, vegetables are good for you. I think the verse is not about the food itself, it's where the food came from. The food was meant for the pagan gods and stuff.
Okay.
Do it. And this is meant for, God wants you to, it's basically saying, hey, they won't feed you. The gods will not, their gods are not healthy. They are not going to feed you. I will, follow my line and I will.
Okay, that's there. Yep. There's another thing.
Well, he caused the official to show favor to Daniel.
Yeah. That's the second thing in there. God manipulated the officials so that they would show favor to Daniel and his 3 friends. Okay, now Daniel's in a foreign country. And the king comes down and he says, I'm gonna give you the best food there is. I'm gonna give you the food from my own table. And Daniel says, no, I'm not eating it. Well, he was more tactful than that, but he said, no, I'm not eating it. Now, if you're in a foreign country and you're a captive and you insult the king, what do you suppose is gonna happen to you back then? Get into your head. And he could finish you just like that. Where did we see another situation in the Bible? Well, there's all kinds of situations, but in the New Testament, where did we see another situation like that?
Where the head cut off.
No, where someone took a stand against a ruling official and could have been killed on the spot, but didn't.
Esther? Is Esther in the New Testament?
No, it's Old
New-
Testament.
New Testament.
Oh, New Testament.
But Esther's a good one, yeah. Esther's a good one.
Well,
Jesus and Pilate. Jesus stood before Pilate and Pilate looked at Jesus and said, "Do you not know that I can take your life?" And Jesus said, "No man can take my life. I give my life freely." Now, Pilate could have pointed to a spear bearer and said, "Put a spear through him," and that would have been the end of it, but he did an amazing thing. He said, "Well, let me see if I can get you off." And he goes out on the porch and he pleads for Jesus' life in front of the whole Jerusalem. I mean, God was in charge. And when we take a stand against something that's not right, God blesses us. A couple years ago, we took one. Was it kind of scary? Did anybody wonder if we were gonna be here after we made that decision? You didn't wonder that? I didn't either. But it's, you're sitting in this limbo between two things and you're wondering, how is this gonna turn out? Well, were we blessed? Absolutely. We're growing. We've got more money than we've ever had. Everything's great. And it's because we did the right thing and God blessed it. Now, we don't need to stand up and say, "Hey, look at me, I did the right thing." But we put trust in God and God brought us through. That's the right attitude. All right. Now, how about the king's servant? How did he respond to this? My head's on the line. This is kind of, he didn't have a God that he could trust to take care of him. And he knew the king. He knew the king. So he was scared about it. Anything else about that? So Daniel responds, 11 through 14.
And I got 2 of them.
Amen.
Daniel then said to the guard whom the chief official had appointed over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Asharai, please test your servant for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food, and treat your servant in accordance with what you see. So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days.
So what does Daniel do? Gives him a plan. And what's this type of plan called in the Bible?
What's in it?
It happened another time that's pretty famous. It's called throwing out a fleece. Where did that happen before?
Gideon?
Gideon. Remember, God gave Gideon the plan? Take 300 men, go down in the valley where there's 100,000 Philistines, I think it was 120. line up around the hillside, the ridges around their camp. Wait until about 2 o'clock in the morning. Hold up your torch so they can see you. Break the pitcher and blow your horn and wake them up. Now, Philistines were pretty known for drinking a lot of wine at supper, so they were probably having a hangover. So they blew the horn, they were in a bad mood, they get up, and they're gonna get up and they're gonna wipe out Gideon and 300 soldiers. And what was Gideon's response?
Are you sure about that?
If God had given you that plan, what would have been your response?
I heard that wrong.
Say what? So Gideon tested God.
No, I don't think so. I don't think he's testing God. I think he's testing, he's not testing, he's just making sure. I mean, we want to make sure we're hearing the right voices and the right person. So he's basically saying, okay, am I hearing this right? If it is, do this. Okay, you know, and you and God, and you have to have, it always says you have to have 3 witnesses and or, you know, test it. So he's testing it more than once to double check.
He's also tested himself. Did I hear this right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure this is how you want to do this? What was God's response?
Okay.
Okay. You know, it's not a problem to be confused and ask a question. Our God is not like Baal and Moloch and Ishtar and Thor and all those Greek gods. He's not arrogant, he's loving, he's kind, and if we don't understand, perfectly okay with him if we test our knowledge of the situation. We can go before the throne boldly after we have accepted Christ as our Savior. We can make sure we're doing the right thing. Okay. So he lays down this fleece, or he lays down this situation. Look, give us all vegetables. Don't make us eat any of that sacrificial meat. And let it go for 10 days. Okay, who's in charge of this?
God.
God. The king's not in charge. The servant of the king's not in charge. Daniel's not in charge. God's in charge. And he said that now he's depending on God to pull this off. Because remember, he's a prisoner and a foreigner in a hostile land. But his calm resolve is, God will get us through. It doesn't say it in those words, but you can see it in his actions. And he does this basically not for himself, but for the king bearer. You know, Daniel was perfectly resolved that God will take care of him, and we'll see that in the lion's den, the fiery furnace, and all that. But as a young man, he had great teaching, and God had made him wise, and he understands things, and he knows that God is going to bring him through. And he acts on it. He said, try this for 10 days. All right. So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days. What do you suppose is going to happen? Have you ever been in a situation like that when you tested God? There was a lady in the Little Ridge French Church that agreed to go and be a camp counselor one summer for the kids of the church. And I was going too. And so she came to Bible study one night, and she said, you know, I've kind of decided that maybe I'm not supposed to go to camp. I said, Sharon, it's next week. How are we gonna replace you? She said, well, I just don't know if I'm supposed to. So I threw out a fleece. I said, oh yeah? She said, yeah. She said, I walk a mile every morning, so I was walking down the road, and I said, Lord, if you want me to go, let me see a snake.
I would never ask you that.
Huh?
Rabbit or a?
Never asked for a snake.
And I'm thinking to myself, why didn't he just say unicorn? Because she was trying to get out of it, she had just tried to get out of it. And so I said, Sharon, she said, and then after I walked a little more, I thought to myself, why didn't I say, don't let me see a snake? Well, we were in Madison County, and I never saw one snake when I lived in Madison County for 12 years. I was out in the garden every day, I hunted, I fished, I never saw a snake in 10 years. That's not a fair test. Okay? And sometimes we try to manipulate the result, don't we? Well, she hadn't walked another 100 yards, and you know, the thought came to her, why didn't you say, don't let me see a snake? She said, I suddenly realized that I just don't want to go, but I'm going. I made a commitment. And she had a ball. I mean, it was a great week. She had a good time. Kids loved her girls loved her. And she testified in church the following Sunday that it was one of the best weeks of her life. Daniel wasn't trying to manipulate the situation. He was trying to alleviate the fears of the servant, and he was trying to get this, because he knew it was the right thing. He knew it was. Now, there's a whole bunch of vegetarians that'll tell you that this is why we shouldn't eat meat. Well, that's not what's going on.
We shouldn't eat sacrificial meat.
Okay. 15 and 16.
At the end of the 10 days, they looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. So the guard took away their choice food and the wine they were to drink and gave them vegetables instead.
Okay. Now, if you were the other wise men that were being trained and had been picked to be the wisest in the county, at the end of the day, they healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. Okay. Now, if you're eating the prime rib and Daniel's eating the vegetables, and the guard says, hey, Daniel, at work, and he take away your prime rib, what would be your attitude? Come on, what would be your attitude?
Probably wouldn't be very happy with Daniel.
It wouldn't make you very happy at all. But, I'm sorry.
We'd be mad at Daniel and tell him he messed it all up for all of us.
Okay. But Daniel's done to his guns, and now all the wise men are eating vegetables. They're not eating the food sacrificed to the foreign gods. All right. 17.
To these 4 young men, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning, and Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds.
Okay. Do the right thing, what's the result?
You'll be blessed.
You'll be blessed. And whatever that you have been chosen to do, you'll do it better than anybody else. You'll do it better than anybody. Do you suppose at any point Daniel was uneasy about his situation?
Sure he was.
Of course he was. He's in a foreign country with a foreign king. The only thing he took to that foreign country with him was his God. And you got all these other people around him worshiping foreign gods, and you're going to take a stand. You're going to stand up and you're going to say, my God's better than your God. He was a little more tactful than that, but that's basically what he did. He said, let's check my God out and see what my God says. Because Daniel knew that God was sovereign, and God rewarded him. God's response was, this is a good thing, and you're going to be blessed. All right. Yeah, 9:05. 18 to the end. At the end of the time set by the king to bring them into his service, the chief official presented them to Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked with them, and he found none equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they entered the king's service, in every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king questioned them. He found them 10 times better than all the magicians and the enchanters in his whole kingdom. And Daniel remained there until the first year of King Cyrus. So, at the end of the time when it was over, there was a test. And how'd that turn out?
Good in Daniel and his friend's favor.
They were 10 times better. Now, the Bible doesn't tell us any reason they were 10 times better except for the will of God. We're not given we're not given any reason to believe that it was because they had a good professor. Because the vegetables are better for you than me. Everything about this story says God was in charge. God is sovereign. God will take care of you. Okay. And he will. Let's have some examples of that when you were very doubtful and you didn't know how something was going to turn out.
So, you talked about, saying, don't, or give me a sign, if this happens or whatever. A few years ago when we bought the Ford, my first Ford Escape, I was not feeling good. The kids were coming home from school, and Steve found this vehicle down in Evansville. And we were going to trade in 2 vehicles for this vehicle. So we're driving down there. I'm not feeling good. And I'm like, Lord, please give me a sign that this is meant to be. I didn't say what, just give me a sign. So we get down there, and as soon as I pull into the parking lot, my check engine light came on in my van. I said, if that wasn't a sign that I was not going home with that, I do not know.
Okay. It went out. About a few years ago when you were sick.
There's so many.
Huh?
There's so many examples. So many examples.
Yeah. And money was tight and drugs were expensive, and did you see God's hand in it?
Absolutely, absolutely. for one thing, through the entire 6-year process, every time we were completely out of money, down to our last $5 in the bank, it would show up. It would be in the mailbox, cash in the mailbox. There would be some refund check that from 10 years ago we didn't know about, just all kinds of things. And then the medicine, I was on 14 prescription medications, but only one of them that I knew actually was doing something, helping. And I was on it for several months and then got a letter saying the insurance wasn't going to cover it anymore. It was going to be
$10,000 a month or something like that.
3 to 10,000, something like that, per month. No way, way out of our reach. And I prayed that there would be some way to figure it out, and CVS called and said it was ready to come pick up, so I'm praying the whole way there. And I just thought, I'm not gonna be able to get it, but I'll see what the price is. And so I pulled up and the lady said, I've got this one for you, but it's kind of expensive. And I said, okay, can you let me know how much it is? Expecting $3,000. She comes back to the window and she says, it's 30. I said, I'll take it.
When I was in my 20s, I was a mail carrier, and I had an 11-mile mail route, and it was all on foot. I walked 11 miles every day. And for some reason, I developed ingrown toenails on both feet. And I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, well, that this is pretty severe. He said, we're gonna have to remove your toenails, and you're probably gonna be off work for like 6 weeks. When I'd come home from work and take off my shoes, I usually wore white socks, and the white socks would be red. Nails were bleeding. Well, it's my day off, and it was a Thursday, and I was making a fly rod. I was building a fly rod. And I was listening to Channel 41 out of Noblesville, and it was a Christian channel. There was this guy I didn't like, came up on the screen. Well, I was in the middle of this rap on this one guy, and I thought, I wish I could turn you off right now, but I can't let go of this. So he's going on. I thought he was just one of those quack faith healers. And I didn't have a very high opinion of him at all, and I was kind of ignoring him, and then I heard him say, they were praying at the end of it, and I heard him say, and there's someone out there with foot issues, and I want you to know that God is going to take care of your feet. And I looked at TV and I said, yeah, right. I kept rapping. So the next day I got up, put on my socks, went to work, and carried my mail route, came home, took off my shoes, and was gonna take off my socks and throw them in cold water like I did almost every night, and my socks were pure white. And I looked at my feet, and my feet were pink, and they weren't red and really inflamed, they were pink. And I've never had an ingrown toenail since. And I quit calling people faith healers after that.
Yeah.
And it was just shortly after that I read in the Bible where David said to his men, do not touch King Saul. You do not touch God's anointed. And it changed my whole attitude toward people. Even if, and it turned out this guy that I didn't like very much, it turned out that he was in the middle of a big scandal with prostitutes and all kinds of things. made the news, fell from grace, lost his church, but God still used him to heal me for sure, and to probably touch other people. He'd have an altar call and dozens and dozens of people would come to the altar. God still used him. And it was none of my business what him and God were up to. God called him to do something, he did it. His private life was pretty scandalous, but still God used him. He belonged to God, he didn't belong to me, and my opinion was irrelevant. God still used him to show me that he heals and that I am to respect his decisions. So, next week we'll start chapter 2, and it's a long chapter. We'll be in it for a couple of weeks. Any questions on chapter 1? Steve has been notified that there may be some pigs to butcher in the near future. He's out of town right now, so we'll talk about